My name's Paul Jason and I'm the motorcycle broker, and welcome to part 2 of the Amelia Island green frame top end engine strip. What I'm going to show you is, first of all, on the cylinder head you've got this blue paint here and the yellow paint. That was factory. It was put on at the factory, and we have to be very careful now. We've been very careful when we cleaned not to remove it, because it is factory paint and it denotes that this particular bike had standard camshafts. Nearly all of them did, but there was the odd exception, and they would use a different coloured paint on this cylinder head. We had a bit of a scare because we took the cylinder head off and we noticed epoxy here, and it's actually JB Weld, and here. We also noticed a terrible bit of weld here, and we spoke to some people we knew who had worked with unrestored machines, because very few people have worked with the unrestored machines. And we spoke to some people. None of them knew anything about it because they hadn't totally stripped the engines. And I spoke then to Ian Falloon, who was actually there when they were building these. And he said they had a terrible problem with porosity on the cylinder heads, because to get the 40mm carbs on, these were just GT or 750 sport heads, they had to have wider studs, and they opened this up. This was a factory weld because they drilled through there for the ore gallery and then they just welded it up. And the way they dealt with the porosity was to use JB Weld, which was actually came to the market in 1969. So it is correct, it was used at the factory to deal with the porosity, because they didn't make many spares for these bikes. They'd make some engines and they'd do a handful of spares. There were barely any at all. So what they did was they dealt with the problem of porosity in the factory using JB Weld at the time. I mean, it's a wonderful, it makes you realise how hand-built these machines were, and how they were built kind of like a Ferrari GTO to win races, but they were put on the road. They were sold as road vehicles. So any problems they got, they just dealt with. Many people would call it a bodge. They dealt with it the way they could deal with it in the factory, as if they were by a racetrack. And it makes these machines even more special and unique. Each one is unique, has its own little idiosyncrasies. And I love things like that. I think it's quite beautiful, and it makes this bike beautiful and unique. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little bit. My name's Paul Jason and I'm the motorcycle broker.